Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. I, 27 female, am a happily married woman and a mother to a 3-year-old toddler. Life has been great as my husband, 30 male, and I established 2 businesses from scratch and gained popularity after going viral on TikTok. We quit our 9-to-5s and have been loving this new routine and freedom. As for my relationship with my family, I am an only child and my parents are divorced and have been for 10 years now. My mom remarried just a year ago. It was a grand wedding and my mom organized the dream wedding she had wanted since she was a teenager. She and dad had a court marriage, so that justified the over-the-top wedding this time around. I'm not too close with my stepdad, but he keeps my mom happy, so that's all that matters. I meet my mom once a week, but instead of going over to each other's houses, we usually meet out at restaurants to catch up over lunch or dinner. I have occasionally met my stepfather at family gatherings like on Thanksgiving or Christmas, but not much other than that. Last Friday, my husband and I were given a surprise visit by my stepfather, just as my husband was backing out of the garage to get groceries. We were both very confused but welcomed him in since he seemed so happy to see us. My husband left saying he would be back soon, and my stepfather came and sat in the living room with me. He asked about my toddler and we talked about work and the business and how things were going. It was a nice evening conversation which I didn't mind at all, and after a half hour, he said he should be on his way. I asked him to stay longer because my husband was not home yet, but he insisted on leaving, so I left him on his way. A minute later, he rang the doorbell and asked if I could back up my car so he could easily exit our driveway, as he was afraid he would scratch my car due to his bad eyesight. I checked to see if our cars were parked that close, but saw they were parked at a safe distance from one another, and let him know it was all right and he could reverse his car without worrying he would hit it. He insisted I move my car, so for his ease, I hopped into my car and started to reverse it. Just as I moved my car hardly a foot back, I heard a loud thump come from behind my car. I immediately stopped the car and ran out to see what I hit, and to my surprise, I saw my stepfather on the ground, yelling as if he were badly hurt, telling me to call for an ambulance. I asked him how this even happened, but he acted too hurt to even talk and just kept yelling for me to call an ambulance, so I did. They arrived and took him to the hospital. I called my mom to let her know, and she got really worried and rushed to the hospital, where I also went shortly after with my husband. Initially, the doctor wouldn't let my husband and I see my stepfather. We kept asking why, and they stated, "You might be a threat to him." The police arrived minutes later. We were confused out of our minds about what was going on. My stepfather didn't even look scratched, so I didn't get what the fuss was all about. After nearly an hour of waiting and an additional half hour of questioning by the authorities on how my stepfather got hit, we were let go. When we came out, my mother and stepfather let us know they were suing us for hitting him with my car. I was speechless. While I stared at them in complete and utter shock, my husband did the rest of the talking and told them loud and clear that he did not get hit and that we had proof. I looked at my husband immediately, unaware of what he was talking about, as my mind was still in shock when he explained the front and rear cameras I had recently installed on my car, plus the extra point of view we would get from the camera on our front porch that showed the perfect view of our porch and the area of our garage my car was parked in. My mind cleared and things started making sense. My mom had mentioned in their last visit how stressed she and stepfather were about the financial damage they had had to face due to their wedding, where they spared no expense, and how she blew half her entire retirement fund and needed to somehow replenish it. It was that same afternoon when she was asking me all these detailed questions about the business my husband and I run together. Everything made sense as if they were pieces to a big jumbo puzzle. My parents tried suing me so they could get insurance money to pay off their debts. The next day, we gave police the camera footage we luckily had, and all the evidence was there nice and clear. My stepfather visibly threw himself onto my car and pretended to get hurt. My mom and stepfather remained stubborn that it was edited, but the policemen were no-nonsense kind of men and basically told my mom and stepdad to F off and not waste their time. My parents were let go after a warning. The messages and calls haven't stopped since, and even the extended family are getting involved now. Any advice or thoughts? Update. My mom and stepfather still keep blaming me as if I did something wrong here. I tried talking to her and my stepfather to let them know what they did was unfair and just plain wrong, but my mom proceeded to blame it all on me because I did not help them financially when they were planning their, in my opinion, unnecessarily big wedding for a couple in their 60s. She knew the reason I could not help out was because my husband and I had used our savings and invested into the business around that same time, so helping my mom out was just not possible. Needless to say, they are now facing the consequences of their actions and have to replenish the retirement fund. I also heard stepdad pretty much has been in debt all his life. I don't know what mom got herself into. Your mom and stepfather are plain evil for what they wanted to do to you and your family. It's scary to think they must have thought of this for at least days before actually going through with it. The fact that your mother didn't see anything wrong in this blows my mind. They decided to have the outrageous wedding and put themselves in debt. Just because you're doing well financially doesn't mean you're automatically supposed to take care of the debt they procured from the wedding. They felt way too entitled to your money to the point where they decided to take it dubiously. Thank goodness for your camera and your husband. Cut them out of your life for good, at least until your mom realizes her wrongdoings. Story 2. I, 33 male, have been married to my wife, 30 female, for 3 years. She's currently 37 weeks pregnant with our first child. I have a 6-year-old son from a previous relationship. I was with my ex, 33, for over 10 years. We had been dating since we were 15. We've been together through a lot. We both had a substance addiction in our teens. I caught on quickly that the effects of my addiction had detrimental effects on my body and I became sober. I got my life together and wanted the same for my ex. I tried many things for her to change her lifestyle, but she always fell back into old habits. I met my wife during my time in college. I, of course, caught feelings for her. She was beautiful, kind, and a genuinely lovely woman. Though I had a crush on her, my feelings for my ex was still stronger. That changed quickly. I fell in love with her the more I got to know her. My ex didn't change her lifestyle. I wanted to move forward. I left her and cut off all contact with her. She was pregnant with my son, but contacted my mother, revealing that she was pregnant. After my son was born, we had a nasty custody battle, and I barely got visitation with him. She used my past against me, and I wouldn't do the same because that's still my son's mom. She did everything in her power to make our life miserable. Every time my son was over, she found a reason to take him home early. Every weekend. She is disrespectful to my wife, though she told me it didn't bother her at all. My ex even refused to let my son on his weekend with me, and we had to take it to court. It was an unnecessarily long process. I did get my visitations again. My ex was still coming to my home on my weekends to bother us. She constantly threatened to take my son away. This one time I bought clothing, toys, etc. for my son. She accepted the gifts, but ended up throwing all of it into a gutter while recording it. The next time she came to pick up my son, I confronted her about it, and she again threatened me to not let me see my son if I get disrespectful with her. I got frustrated and told her to not bring him here anymore, as she wished. She didn't contact me for 5 weeks, and the 6th week she texted me she would bring my son over, that he missed me. I texted back telling her that I did not want him here anymore, as she wanted and to not contact me anymore. I still fulfill my financial obligation to my son. I sent her $300 extra every month to take care of him. My wife is heavily pregnant and cannot deal with stress right now. I have to put our baby and her first. My ex blasted me on Facebook and everyone is against me for putting my wife first. I feel like I made a somewhat of a good decision for my wife's and baby's health, not only for them but also for my son. The environment between us was too toxic for him. My mother is calling me a deadbeat even though I still provide for him financially. His mother made it very clear she would never change, and maybe it's for the best if he didn't visit us anymore. Am I the a-hole? Update. I would firstly like to clarify that my ex-girlfriend is not using substances anymore, and she does not mistreat my son, The reason why I did not use my ex-girlfriend's addiction against her was because she was in the process of recovery. The outcome could have been bad for both of us if both parents were painting each other as substance users. My son was also just a baby, and I did not want to remove him from his mother, who clearly improved herself for him. My intention was not to make an enemy of her, but to co-parent in a healthy, stable environment. My son loves his mother so much, and it feels wrong to take him away from her. My son will be with me from July 1st to July 10. He'll also be with me on July 17th. It's his 7th birthday. It will be the first time he will be with me on his birthday. My ex reluctantly agreed to these terms after I apologized to her for the treatment I gave my son, and another situation between her and I. She wasn't very happy and cursed me out. I told that I wouldn't contact her regarding our son directly anymore and would only be doing that via a lawyer. I told her I would love to have 50-50 custody. I would keep paying her $960 a month and to let me have my time with my son peacefully in exchange. I lastly told her that she didn't have to agree to the custody suggestion over the phone and that it would be better if it's done on paper via our lawyers. I said have a nice day and ended the call. She'll most likely not agree, but I will take further action to make it happen. My son is doing great. I got permission from his mother to FaceTime via his iPad. I told him I was sorry for not having him over for so long. He was upset and cried, asking me why he wasn't allowed to see me anymore. I told him that Daddy was a dummy and that he's always welcome to stay here. I told him I would make it up to him with a really big surprise. He got very excited and started packing his backpack while we were FaceTiming. I said what I said out of anger, and I shouldn't have. My anger and actions affected my innocent son, and I take full responsibility for that. I will do anything to make it up to him and to better myself for my children. You were the a-hole, OP, but you've taken the necessary steps to make you not an a-hole. Earlier in your post, you sounded like a parent who has completely given up on their kid. He's your kid. Regardless of how toxic and stressful dealing with his mother is, you cannot abandon him. I understand that you were trying to make this better and safer for your wife and your unborn baby, but abandoning your kid isn't the way to go about it. He needs you, and you need to be responsible for him since you brought him into this world. The steps you've taken are good ones. Do everything you can to make sure you have a good relationship with your son. Good luck, OP. Now for some comments. Everyone sucks here. She's an a-hole for using your son as a weapon against you, and you're an a-hole for basically dumping your son because you don't want to deal with your ex anymore. I have to put my wife and unborn child first. No. What you need to do is keep spending time with your son, regardless of her actions. He will remember how you both acted. Take her ass to court. Get a written custody agreement, and if or when she tries to violate it, document it. Both of you need to get it together, or your son will need a lot of therapy in the future. I'm happy with your added update because your original post had me fuming. My father chose his new wife over his kids when my brother and I were 12. Me and 14 brother. My parents had divorced when we were young, in 1st and 3rd grade, I believe. I have abandonment issues, daddy issues, and a whole mountain of other issues because of my dad's decision many years ago. I am now 29 and still struggle with the past. My dad and his wife now have 4 children together who I love and adore very much. If it wasn't for my siblings, I never would have mended things with my father. Never make your child feel unwanted. It will haunt them forever. Proud of you for realizing you were wrong and stepping up to be the bigger person. Trust me, my father will never forgive himself for the decisions he made and the effects it had on his first children. I'll go ahead and simplify this for you. Your first responsibility is that of a father, not a man, not a husband, not a worker. It's being a father, and it's not just being a father to one of your kids. It's being a father to all of your kids. If your wife is giving you this many problems, you need to go back to court and establish a firm custody regiment. If she can't comply with that, you go back to court again. It's going to be expensive, it's going to suck. But eventually, if your wife is as bad as you say she is, you will get custody of your son. We no longer live in the day and age where a mother gets a child all the time. The family court systems across the United States only care about the best parent to put the child with. Your son has no choice but for you to be his father, and you're running away from that responsibility out of convenience, at his lifelong expense. So yes, the answer to your question is you are the a-hole.